Kirk Gibson hit among their greatest home runs.
And there it goes!
It's a democratic stadium where the wealthy, the middle class, and even the poor can all come into a ballpark and sit in many different seats and be very close to the field.
Where the home team's World Series triumph was decided in a split second at home plate.
I think one of the things that is important about any city is that it has these focal points of personal memory and regional history that can act as links between generations.
Tonight, out at home, the final day at Tiger Stadium.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Dave Marish.
Look at the stadium, says former Detroit Tiger star Kirk Gibson. It says Detroit. It's rough-looking, it's tough-looking, it's blue-collar. And after today, Tiger Stadium is out of business. The next pitch it will see will likely be from a wrecking ball. To some in Detroit, Tiger Stadium's demise is a tragedy. To others, it's a rip-off. While to many fans, Tiger management, and most Major League ball players, the move to brand-new Comerica Park opens a brand-new era of better facilities, bigger crowds, and another beautiful showplace for what used to be called America's pastime. Tonight, we'll take a knothole peek through the fence at Tiger Stadium's history, a green eyeshade squint at how the books will balance on a move over which hundreds of livelihoods and hundreds of millions of dollars hang in the balance. But first, let's take you out to the ballpark, where more than a summer season reached its climax today.
The 2-2. Yeah. Got him. Ball game.
Baseball fans in Detroit said a fond farewell to a ballpark and an address tonight. Tiger Stadium's location is the junction of Michigan Avenue and Trumbull. But to Tiger fans, it's simply the corner, a synonym for baseball, Tigers, and good times.
This is the first park that I ever came to as a youngster. This is where I learned about baseball, Major League Baseball.
Kirk Gibson went on to become a big league star, one of the all-time Tigers. Frank Rashid didn't.
My uncle used to bring me to the ball games, and I think it was in 1962. Before one pitch to Norman Cash, he said, "Over the wall," and it did. It went right over, right outside the ballpark.
Oh, there she goes, and it is on the roof.
Like many of the old ballparks, Tiger Stadium was one of a kind, famed for its spacious center field, its home run haven in right field, and its great sight line. Unless, that is, you're sitting in the Tigers' dugout, as first baseman Tony Clark often is.
The field sits up and it tapers down toward the dugout, so when you're sitting underneath, you're seeing from about the chest high up.
And if you jump up to see an exciting play, the dugout roof can perform instant brain surgery.
You got to be careful. Unless you have a helmet on, you're going to hurt yourself.
From the stands, especially the front rows where overhanging roofs are not an issue, the contact with the game and the players is intimate. From first base, Tony Clark says,
You get to a point where you start to hear the same voices day in and day out.
Toward the left side, off the glove of Randa.
Which says former Tigers third baseman Joe Randa can be a good thing or a bad thing.
It all matters really how you're playing. If you're doing a good job, they let you know that you're doing a good job. But if you're not, they're going to let you know you're not doing a good job.
The best seat in the house, and he says in the game, belongs to Tigers broadcaster Ernie Harwell.
We've got an old gag. We say we can see him sweat and hear him cuss. We're so close.
Harwell has called Tigers games since 1960, some 48 years after Tiger Stadium, then called Navin Field, first opened. At that time, the Tigers' great star, their greatest ever, was Ty Cobb. Cobb, who had the highest lifetime batting average in baseball history, was a driven and brilliant man, and alas, a vicious racist. And the Tiger franchise had a sorry history as the next to last team in baseball to hire a black player. But the Tigers also featured perhaps baseball's greatest Jewish player, home run hitter Hank Greenberg, and the team's list of Hall of Famers contains names and ethnic heritages as diverse as Cochran, Crawford, Gehringer, Kaline, Manouche, and Kell. And more recently, the Tigers had one of baseball's best and longest-running double play combinations.
Detroit's dynamic duo of the 70s and 80s and through the mid-90s was, Lou Whitaker and Ellen Trammell.
Bouncer to Trammell, out at second and out at first. They turn the double play.
The men were of different races and had contrasting personalities.
But, they went together like hot dogs and beans.
The 90s have been cruel years for the Tigers. The team has rarely been a contender, and its home park has been judged obsolete. Once it was decided that Tiger Stadium was beyond resuscitation, the major question was where to move the ball club. The choices essentially two: downtown Detroit or the suburbs. And the recent experiences of the Motor City's other major sports franchises only confused the issue. The NFL Detroit Lions moved to the Silverdome outside the city in Pontiac in 1975. But now the Lions want to move back downtown, right next door to the Tigers' new Comerica Park. The NBA Pistons have been in their suburban palace in Auburn Hills since 1989 and aren't looking back. While the NHL Red Wings, owned like the Tigers by Mike Ilitch, never left downtown and never will.
One, because Mike Ilitch owns a lot of businesses downtown, so it'd be foolish for him to move to the suburbs. The other thing about the Red Wings is it's also Canada's team. Windsor's right across the river, so the Wings have to stay downtown, so to be close to the border and also downtown to help Mike Ilitch's business.
In fact, the new ball yard, Comerica Park, is right across Woodward Avenue from Ilitch's Fox Theater and his Second City Comedy Club. But the real bonanza is inside the new park itself, where an entire mid-level of corporate boxes and club seats will generate big bucks, as will the best grandstand seats, which will go for $75 a pop. To build out, the new economics make for a major social loss at Tiger Stadium.
It's a democratic stadium where the wealthy, the middle class, and even the poor can all come into a ballpark and sit in many different seats and be very close to the field.
While at Comerica Park,
you're going to be looking at the haves in the glassed-in luxury suites, and the have-nots are going to be in nosebleed country in the upper deck at this new stadium. And it's going to lose the ambiance of what baseball is all about.
Increasingly, says economist Andrew Zimbalist, what baseball is all about is...
It's becoming a corporate experience now more and more.
Zimbalist contends even baseball's model new stadiums, Baltimore's Oriole Park at Camden Yards and Cleveland's Jacobs Field, haven't brought new money into their cities as much as they've moved money around, taking it away, for example, from the tiny improvised parking lots and the beer and shot bars like those surrounding Tiger Stadium, and directing it to the ball club and its shops, restaurants, and souvenir stands inside the new ballpark complex.
The local merchants are being left out in the street, and all of that activity is being transferred to Mr. Ilitch.
If recent history in Baltimore and Cleveland is any guide, says Zimbalist, transplanting home plate will bring Tiger fans to a modern amusement center in which the ball game is only part of the fun, while bringing Tiger management a fortune, some of which might be spent on better players and a better ball club. In a moment, we'll talk with the mayor of Detroit, the longtime voice of the Tigers, and a sports columnist on the passing of an era.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by...
Joining us now from Tiger Stadium, Ernie Harwell, the play-by-play voice of the Tigers since 1960. Mitch Albom, syndicated columnist of the Detroit Free Press, and the mayor of the city of Detroit, Dennis Archer. Ernie, let me start with you. You've spent so much time painting word pictures. We've seen some video pictures, but give us in words some of your emotions today at giving up what's been your workplace for almost 40 years.
Dave, I think it was a very emotional evening. It was a great evening. The people here had a great time. And what impressed me so much and moved me more than anything else was the behavior of the crowd. They were attentive, they were loyal, they were dignified, and they really respected this great old ballpark. And that made me feel better than anything else could possibly make me feel.
Well, as somebody beautifully told the Associated Press tonight, it was a Ruly crowd. Mitch, they say there's no cheering in the press box, but what about tearing up? Was there real emotion inside the press box tonight?
I think even amongst the hard-bitten journalists, there was a little bit of nostalgia. This place is a bit of an ugly duckling love affair that you have. Some of the things that aren't so great about it, the smells, the poles that sit in front of the seats, the bad press box viewing area, are the things you actually come to love over time. Even the bumping of your head in the dugout, which you heard in the opening piece. Players have welts on their heads as memories of Tiger Stadium trying to see what was going on. It's hard not to feel nostalgic about a place that's been around for really the century, because it connects virtually everybody in this city and everybody in this state.
Mayor Archer, I assume that tonight you were Tiger fan, Archer. What are your memories? What's your favorite moment of the old ballpark?
I think I have several. Willie Horton, for example, was a high school graduate here in Detroit, and the kind of pride that everybody felt in him when he'd come up to the plate. He was an excellent hitter. He contributed mightily to the city, continues to do so. Earl Wilson, an outstanding pitcher, and could hit a home run out the park long before we started using designated hitters and having someone there. But I think my wife and I, Trudy, think back to when Goose Gossage challenged Kirk Gibson. On other occasions, he had smoked him and gotten by, and here we are at the World Series, and Kirk Gibson comes up to the plate. The manager goes out to talk to the pitcher, Goose Gossage. Goose obviously convinces him, hey, I got this guy, I'll dust him out, I've had him before. Kirk Gibson hits the ball right out the park, and of course we went on to win the World Series that night, and it was just an outstanding game.
Mitch, in the sort of densely packed eastern corridor, people think of ballparks as municipal possessions, or in the case of Ebbets Field, a borough's possession. Tiger Stadium belonged to a much wider constituency than just Detroit, no?
Yeah, really, it's a state of Michigan type of thing, and even parts of Ohio and neighboring states. I think if you take any two people from the state of Michigan and say to them, all right, what's one place that you have in common? It's going to be right here at Tiger Stadium. At some point in your life, you came down here with your father, your grandfather, your grandmother, your uncle. Everyone spent some time here, and I think that's why you saw at the end of this game was a wonderful moment where all the old players came out one at a time and went onto the field. And sometimes a crowd will get bored or unruly. It was silent. It was almost reverential. And I think what happened was this entire stadium, 50, 60,000 people, were remembering their own lives here. And that's why it was quiet. It was almost like church. They were seeing these players and they were remembering where they were when these players came out. And that's the kind of connection you get in a stadium like this, in a state like this, where baseball has pulled it together many a time over many a year.
When we come back, Tiger Stadium is only one of 3 big league parks shutting down this season. Is this a trend? And the closing this week of Tiger Stadium, Houston's Astrodome, and San Francisco's Candlestick Park, a.k.a. 3Com Stadium. Only Boston's Fenway Park, Chicago's Wrigley Field, and New York's Yankee Stadium remain of baseball's grand old ballparks. And Fenway may be replaced soon. And when it closes, the 3rd oldest park in Major League Baseball will be Dodger Stadium, Los Angeles, built in 1962. That's a lot of change, Mitch Albom, but is it progress?
Well, let's be clear about something, Dave, with baseball stadiums different than probably every other stadium. People are more sentimental about baseball stadiums. I like to say that sometimes you find your childhood in a baseball stadium, and sometimes you leave it there too. And so any notion of someone taking down your stadium hits you a little bit in the heart. But I don't think Detroit, in fairness to Tiger Stadium and this organization, should be held responsible for what's happening in the sport of baseball. It's been 88 years that this building has been here. In that period of time, many, many other cities have opened, closed, opened, closed, opened, and closed stadiums for baseball, while Tiger Stadium still stood. The fact is, these are the economics of the sport. And if you want to compete, and that is what puts people in the seats here, you have to have a big budget to pay for expensive players. Witness the New York Yankees, because this is a sport that doesn't have a salary cap. In order to do that, whether you think it's right or wrong, you have to get the money from luxury boxes and other extended things that you can't really get in a stadium like this anymore. So the sport, the economics have dictated that it's progress. It's really not up for anyone else to judge it, because if you don't win and you don't put people in the seats, eventually you're going to lose your team and it's going to move to some other city that will.
And economists like Andy Zimbalist say that among the recent stadium deals, the one for Comerica Park is among the best for the city, in part because Mike Ilitch is kicking in more than $100 million of his own money to help build his own ballpark. Mayor Archer, how'd you negotiate such a favorable deal for the city?
Well, let me just indicate that when you combine both stadia, it's a $504 million investment. And both teams, the Ilitch organization owning the Detroit Tigers and the Ford family owning the Detroit Lions, they didn't have to, I mean, they set the bar sky high. The overwhelming amount of money invested is coming from the private sector. The public contribution is less than 50%. Now that's talking about from the city of Detroit, from the county of Wayne, and from the state of Michigan. So we're very blessed to have two outstanding family organizations who love their city and who love the sport and believe investing back. We're very fortunate in the city to have the likes of Mike Ilitch and his family and William Clay Ford Sr. and Jr. and their family.
What about the anti-democratic aspect of the stadium change that Bill Dow of the Tiger Stadium fan club was pointing to? There is a whole different economic structure in the seating at the new Comerica Park. Mr. Mayor, do you miss the fact that at Tiger Stadium everybody essentially stays close to the park, even though they may pay different prices for their tickets, while at the new park the high-priced folks are going to have their own parking, their own entrance, their own concessions, and have something of a different experience from the guys in the lower and upper decks?
Dave, in any new stadia, it is not uncommon to be able to accommodate those who are going to be paying the higher end. The same kind of thing occurs in stadia across the United States. But I think what you're going to find here, what our fans will find, is that they're actually going to be closer to the field. The ambiance are going to be better. And as Mitch pointed out earlier in the first segment, we're going to have cleaner bathrooms and all of the amenities that just make a ballpark the kind of respectable place where you can bring your family, your children, your wife, etc. And it's going to be so much better. And I believe that the fans will really appreciate it. I can't wait to hear Ernie Harwell call the first game there and read what Mitch Albom's going to write. When Mitch writes, he writes in prose. You watch what occurs. It's going to be a different ball game. And I respect what Bill Dow has to say, but I will tell you, when the issue came up as to whether or not public funds ought to be used in the park, Bill Dow led the opposition. The city of Detroit voted him down 81 to 19%.
And that, Dave, if I can add something to it, that brings up something that hasn't been brought up yet, and people might not know unless they live here in Detroit, and that is that given what's happened in the city, and it's sometimes bleak history, economic and downtown, the notion of something new, the notion of an area in Detroit where there are other businesses that will blossom as a result of it, where there's an area to walk around at night, not just drive into the stadium and drive right back home, which is frequently what happens here at Tiger Stadium, excites a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are excited about the notion of Detroit growing in a different way simply because there's going to be two new stadiums downtown near the theaters, near their other restaurants. A stadium will not save a city. It never has. It never will. But it can inspire a sort of confidence, particularly in cities that could use a little boost in that area. And it's not just about the baseball stadium. It's about what it does to your perception of the city of Detroit.
Well, the perception of the game is going to be in the hands and in the microphone of Ernie Harwell. Ernie, do you know what your new broadcast position is going to be? You're going to have that same wonderful, as Red Barber said, catbird seat?
Well, Dave, I don't think it'll be that close, but I know that it'll be a good one. I don't think we can get as close in any new ballpark as we have been in this one, because as far as I know, in the current ballparks, this is by far the closest. And the only one I've ever seen that was any closer Might have been old Griffith Stadium in Washington, which has been gone a long time.
Gone but never forgotten here in the nation's capital. Mitch Albom, Ernie Harwell, Mayor Dennis Archer, thanks for joining us tonight. Dave Marish in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Tonight, we must say goodbye. Farewell, old friend. Tiger Stadium, we will remember.
Piece of America's past is about to disappear into the mist of nostalgia. The two oldest baseball parks in the United States are Fenway Park in Boston and Tiger Stadium in Detroit. They opened the same year, 1912. By this time tomorrow, there will only be Fenway. ABC's Aaron Brown is in Detroit.
Stadium, but the memories are all here.
Today was the 6,873rd time Detroit took the field at Tiger Stadium. The first time, April 20th, 1912. The Tigers defeated Cleveland 6-5 in 11, and so began the stadium at Michigan and Trumbull, the place they call the Corner.
This ballpark, of all ballparks, speaks to family because the grandfathers were here, then the fathers were here, then the sons were here, then the grandsons.
In this quirky and most intimate of ballparks, grandfathers saw Sam Crawford and old Heine Manouche. Their grandkids saw Al Kaline. So close you could nearly see the sharpened edge on Ty Cobb's spike sliding into third, or the look on Lou Gehrig's face when he finally sat down, the streak over, May the 2nd of 39, the same day future Tiger Gates Brown was born.
You could touch the people, you could touch the fan. You come out of the dugout, they could touch you.
The Tigers won 4 World Series here, and each one seemed more important than just a championship. They celebrated something or symbolized something or helped heal some wound that extended far beyond baseball.
It's a clean hit.
The first was 1935, the middle of the Depression.
And there it goes!
The last in the auto recession of 1984.
I just put my arms up in the air and I just couldn't help it.
They won in 45 as the war was ending, led by the great Jewish slugger Hank Greenberg, back from the Army, back in the stadium, the season on the line.
9th inning, he comes up, bases loaded. Home run.
And the summer of '68, the summer after the worst race riots in American history, baseball became a divided city's common language.
We gave them something else to talk about. I don't know what might have happened if we hadn't won.
In these last few days, it's hard to escape the ghosts of '87 summers.
And here comes Mickey Cochran home with the winning run. Let's listen to the bedlam here at Tiger Stadium.
Memories of time spent, of history written at the place they call the Corner. Aaron Brown, ABC News, Detroit.
There's going to be more about Tiger Stadium later this evening on Nightline.
And their 88-year run here at the Corner, but they capped it off with a powerful home run that had a West Michigan connection. With just over an inning to go, Grand Rapids resident and Tiger fan Steve Knapp knew exactly how he wanted the last game at Tiger Stadium to end.
It'd be nice to see one of the Whitecaps maybe hit a home run to end the game. Or
just a few pitches later, former Whitecap Robert Fick gave Knapp his wish. A 4-run blast off the facing and right.
It's a grand slam, it's a big one. All right, that's what it go, Rob. Let's go Whitecap. That's our boy. That's our boy.
And the dreams kept coming. Adam Grant wanted to be in the stands with his family the last game, but the Tiger ball boy got called into work right field by the visitors' bullpen, right where Robert Fick's grand slam eventually landed. Grant took that final hit, that final homer, into the clubhouse.
Oh, I'm not a good runner, but I was moving pretty fast there, and I couldn't feel the ground. It was unbelievable to be here on the field one last time.
The Fick's home run ended the game. The fans, it was time to say goodbye. Some said it with a smile, some said it with a cheer, and some said it with tears. But perhaps the kid who just happened to be in the right place at the right time said it best.
It's more than words can describe.
However, the Detroit News is trying to describe it with one word tonight. Their special edition put out just as the stadium let out, goodbye. Stay with us because Jack Doles will be along. He's going to have more with Robert Fick, the guy who hit that grand slam nearly out of the park tonight, and have much more and just some really moving closing ceremonies. here at the corner. We're live in Detroit. Joel LaVergie, News 8.
Wow. Well, we're anxious to see you here more, and it was a very good goodbye, Joe. Wow.
Yeah, it was a good way to say goodbye.
No kidding.
Thanks, Joe.
Great time.
I saw a sea of souvenirs for sale, from T-shirts to caps to pennants. But the biggest prize was programs from the final game, and at $10 a piece, they were pretty hard to find.
We were fighting for them just to get programs beginning of the game here. I mean, they were selling 20, 50 at a time. Everyone's fighting just because they're afraid they're going to be sold out by the time the game starts.
Our coverage of the final game at Tiger Stadium will continue.
There she goes, and it is on the roof. Robert Fick, a grand slam that hits the roof and comes back.
What a shot. A former Whitecap sends out the old ballpark with a bang. Jack Doles and Jason Terzis have all the last...
Baseball at the corner. It is over. Tiger Stadium is no longer the home of the Detroit Tigers, but what a tremendous way to send the old ballpark out. Jack Doles joins us live from Tiger Stadium, and Jack, a very emotional night out there at the corner of Michigan Trouble, huh?
Jason, you know, Tom Hanks once said there's no crying in baseball, but if you watched that closing ceremony tonight and didn't get at least a little choked up, I'm sorry, you're not human. What a night, a Hollywood script, especially for Robert Fick, who made this place go crazy. On a day where Tiger greats and over 40,000 fans came together for one last trip down memory lane, it was a former Whitecap that gave them one final moment to remember.
Al told him he'd hit a home run today.
Oh, there she goes, and it is on the roof.
Robert Fick's grand slam will go down as the last home run ever hit at the corner. And fittingly, he wore number 25 on his jersey and was inspired by another former Tiger great, Al Kaline.
That's a funny story. He came up to me right before the game was starting, and he said, "Hey, Ficky, why don't you make history today and hit one out of here?" And I said, "All right, no problem." He said, "Norm Cash should hit one out today." And I said, "Okay."
What a moment. But it paled in comparison to what followed. After Todd Jones recorded the final out, the crowd said goodbye to an old friend, then roared as the men who graced this grass tipped their caps in salute.
It's such an awesome facility and such an awesome historical site, and so many great moments have taken place here. It seems like every day I have the opportunity to talk to somebody, and they talk to me about coming here for the first time with their father or their mother, or bringing their kids here.
From generation to generation, we've joined that joyous crowd, and all of us love this old place. And its closing tugs at our heart. And like you, like all of us, I will cherish its memories. I know that there's never been a corner like Michigan and Trumbull.
Nobody can say it like Ernie Harwell, huh? You know, and one of those things I'm going to take away from tonight was watching all the people that were leaving here. They take a few steps, and all of a sudden they just walk backwards a little bit, take it in one more time, and I did see at least one guy that probably had a few too many cocktails and he fell on his back. But Jason, what a night here at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull as we say goodbye.
Yeah, definitely a wide range of emotions. I guess we've got them all encompassed there. All right, Jack, thanks a lot.
No doubt about it.
All right, thank you. Now, of course, going on in the middle of all the festivities, pregame, postgame, there was a baseball game, the Tigers and Royals. Let's get to it, yes, and I guess crying was allowed on a day like this. And a lot of people, yes, Al Kaline and George Brett, the Kansas City Royals, exchanging lineup cards, and then 95-year-old Billy Rogel, a pitcher with the Tigers when they won the World Series in 1930, 34 and 35 out throughout the first pitch, and then the current Tigers wearing the all-time Tiger greats, the numbers of all of them. And oh yeah, as for the game, Luis Polonia, what a way to lead things off in the bottom of the first. A home run. Nice way to get things going for the Tigers. Now, in the 6th inning, it was a 2-2 game. Kareem Garcia, he too connects a 2-run home run the opposite way. The Tigers take a 4-2 lead. And meantime, while the game is going on, what are the fans doing? Trying to get as many mementos of Tiger Stadium as possible. Yes, even getting dirt from the field. That's a nice thing to do. And then the big blast, here you go, Rob Fick, the former Whitecap. In fact, played, what, a weekend here in West Michigan just, what, about 2 months ago. Grand Slam gives the Tigers an 8-2 lead. Then the top of the 9th with the thousands upon thousands of flashbulbs popping. Todd Jones gets the final strikeout as the Tigers win the game. The last one at the corner, 8-2. Well, elsewhere in the American League, Pedro Martinez left with a lot of Tiger Stadium dirt, you know, and people were paying the souvenir stands after the game. They were paying $10 for a tiny plastic container of dirt, and it said Tiger Stadium dirt. I'm sorry, but the guy, you know, went in his backyard and shoveled it.
Probably so.
A sucker is born every minute.
People are paying $7,500
Tiger Stadium
for dentures, you know?
Well, you know, how do you prove they're Ty Cobb's dentures? Think about that, huh?
I don't think I want to prove it. Thanks, John.
Okay, we'll call this an old-fashioned round.
The ball flying and a grand slam home run. Heroes of the present and the past watched as 87 years of baseball at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull in Detroit came to an end tonight. And good evening, everyone. I'm Lee Vandermeer. Thanks for staying up with us. Julia Dregas has the evening off. Tiger Stadium was packed tonight and cheered on their team as they beat Kansas City 8-2. They also cheered the place where so many of them had grown up watching America's game. Chris Daniels was there.
It was as if someone from the heavens wanted to get a final look. Tigers, some 50,000 fans did too.
I was 10 years old, came to visit my uncle. We sat over there right behind the dugout, and my first memory was Hank Greenberg playing first base.
Spent a lot of time walking around, sat in every section, sat in the bullpens, sat in the dugouts, and so we kind of soaked it up.
They soaked up the nuances, the right field overhang, and the chain link fence that lets you feel like you're in the outfield.
Every day, including today, this grand old lady has given something back to her fans that modern-day stadiums do not. A chance to sit in the cheap seats and still feel a part of the game.
And I just love this place. I hate to see it go. It's beautiful. It's tradition.
A tradition which came to an end at 7:09 tonight. The Tigers' last game, an 8-2 victory, a diamond not forever, simply no more. For the legions of people who grew up here, it's now just history.
I grew up here. My mom raised 6 kids in the bleachers, so kind of hard to say goodbye.
As far as I can see, this stadium isn't falling down, but it's over. I have to get over it.
When you sit down, it's just the aura, and you see the green grass and the players in the field. It's just like a field of dreams.
Now just a memory that shall never fade away.
Oh, he stood there like the house by the side of the road and watched it go by.
Here's a kick to pitch. There's a chopper hit out toward the mound, gloved by Aldred. He wheels, fires inside.
At Tiger Stadium, Chris Daniels, WZZM 13 News.
So 4 fans were arrested tonight, rushing the field after the win, but there was really no widespread scavenging of this hallowed park tonight, and Tom Helmer is here to tell us what it meant to the players.
Well, it's nice to hear about the fans. Stark contrast from '84.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Good. Only 4. That was good. I'll tell you what, tonight was as big a night for the players as it was the fans. After all, they're the ones who made the memories, and now they're, of course, sad to see the Tiger Stadium will no longer host baseball games.
You know, part of my life is going away. It's sort of like I tell people that, yeah, you used to go to Grandma's house all the time, and you remember Grandma's house, and one day you drove by and Grandma's house had been torn down.
Now Grandma has a new house, and of course, coming up in sports, we'll have much more on the game. Larry Figursky is in Detroit. He'll have a full report, and a former Whitecap played a big part in tonight's game.
Interesting to watch the faces of those fans. Some of the people were really broken up tonight about that.
Well, actually, some of the players, too, had their video cameras out there, you know, videotaping some of the legends that were coming out there, so just a wonderful evening.
Okay, we'll look forward to sports. Well, the Tigers will move into their new home next April. It's Comerica Park. It was built with a brick and ironwork design to feel like an old-time ballpark. Comerica seats 40,000 fans, has 102 luxury suites. It costs $260 million.
Came up in